Now I'm starting it again because it's really annoying when you watch the recording and there's like, 10 minutes of like stuff that is not. So, morning again, everybody. We are continuing with our with learning about tefillah, and we are still in Pesukei Dezimra for Shabbat. So, just kind of to remind ourselves what we're talking about. We started with Birkot HaShachar. We moved to the Korbanot, and we started talking about Pesukei Dezimra, that unit that is defined by the two blessings, right? We have the blessing in the beginning, which is Baruch Shamar, and we spoke about that. We have the blessing that we're going to talk about at some point, which is the Yishtabach, the blessing at the end of that unit. And we said that this practice of taking biblical text and making a sandwich out of it, meaning have rabbinic text before and after, is something that we see quite a lot in our tefillot, like the Shema unit, like Hallel that we said today. These are all biblical passages that we have rabbinic text before and after. That's part of the kind of the method. We talked about this idea that we have on Shabbat, that unit of Pesukei Dezimra has been expanded. Since we're not in a hurry, we're not rushing to go to work, etc. We have more time, and therefore we add 7 mizmorim, 7 psalms, representing the 7 days of the week. And what happens after those mizmorim within, by the way, and one of them is as what we call the Mizmor or Tehillim Kuf Lamed Vav 136, which is the Kilo Olam Chasdo, the response Kilo Olam Chasdo all the time, which gives a form of Hallel its name, like we see that Hallel, for example, in the Haggadah, right? Because we have that Mizmor, it's called Hallel Hagadol or Hallel HaMitzri. Because there's a lot of emphasis on the Exodus, the time. And then that brings us basically to what happens after that. So we have the seven psalms that are representing 7 days of the week. That this is the expansion of Pesukei Dezimra. Now we are on page 388. And here we have actually one more addition to the Shabbat/holidays editions of Pesukei Dezimra, which is Psalm 92 and 93. And Psalm 92, as you can see from the very beginning, Mizmor Shir Leyom Shabbat, a song for the Sabbath day. We understand why it was there. But the Mishnah goes even a little bit further. And even though we recite that as part of our Kabbalat Shabbat, and we're going to talk about Kabbalat Shabbat someday when we are done with Shacharit. We did Kabbalat Shabbat? You might have better memory than me. I'll have to go back and check my records. But in any event, Psalm 92 and 93 were recited as part of Kabbalat Shabbat. And actually on those Shabbatot where it coincides with a Chag, like Chol HaMoed, for example, or Yom Tov, so what we do is we actually skip the previous Mizmorim of Kabbalat Shabbat and we go directly to that one. Why? Because that kind of cemented that it becomes Shabbat. Why this is important, not for now, but for Kabbalat Shabbat, why this is so important. So, for example, one practical ramification is during the summer, a lot of the places, including here at Bet Shekel, we have our services early, right? If Shabbat starts at whatever 8 o'clock in the summer, and nobody wants to start having dinner after 9, so we make Shabbat early, right? So you make Shabbat early at home by what? By lighting the candles, right? So even if it's not really the latest, you can make Shabbat early. You can start Shabbat early. So you take away from Friday, big deal. You take some part of from Friday and you make it into Shabbat. That means once you light the candles, all the restrictions of Shabbat and everything applies. What about the men? Shul, okay, much more than that. There's got to be something specific that happens in Shul. It's the recitation of Psalm 92. So by the fact that I recite Psalm 92, and was, by the way, that was the original, or not the original, but the first part of Kabbalat Shabbat. This is how they marked the transition from the weekdays to Shabbat. And once, which is like in the beginning was like weird for me, it's like, we daven Mariv, we say, it's like, and I go outside and still the sun is still, up, because we daven at 6 p.m. So it's like, it feels like a little bit weird. Oh, forget it. Then Shabbat comes at midnight. Yeah. We had that in London a little bit, also, like Shabbat like started like, late, very late. Yeah. So that was, anyway, so Bizmosh Yom Shabbat is kind of like what quantifies Shabbat for Friday night. Now, why do we have it in Pesukei Dezimra on Shabbat morning? Well, first of all, that Mizmo obviously is talking about Shabbat. So thematically it works. But more than that, the Mishnah tells us that was the psalm of the day, right? We know every day the Leviim used to sing, and we say, Hayom Yom, blah, 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 B'Shabbat, Shabo, Hayu Alviim Omrim Bebeit HaMikdash. That the Levites used to recite a particular psalm. There was a particular one. It's Psalm 24 for Monday, and there's one for Tuesday, for Wednesday, right? So there's also one for Shabbat, and Shabbat is Mizmor Shel Yom Shabbat. So yes, I know that today our practice, we recite it later on as part of, at the end of Musaf. Some congregations do that after Shacharit. There's one of the difference between Benny's Minyan and upstairs. Upstairs we do it after Shacharit, and Benny's they do it after Musaf. Interestingly, anyway, it's all kosher. But the before the whole service was formulated this way, that this is kind of like was here, and it made sense to do that because we are reciting Tehillim. We're in that unit where we all reciting Tehillim, so it fits very well. Okay, and yes.
So, okay, you've got two people who have two different ways of practicing. Were they?
No. Let me clarify. That particular mizmor, that particular psalm is being repeated in today's, the way we have our services constructed today. This psalm is being repeated again. And here, when it comes to that repetition, that second time, we have differences of customs.
So it's just a minhag.
Oh, it's even less than a minhag. Yeah. Whether you do it after Shacharit or after Musaf. By the way, the old practice, the original practice, was to recite the Shir Shel Yom in the very, very beginning, when you recite Adon Olam and the morning blessings. A remnant of that practice still exists in our practice, at least of many, many, many congregations in Nusach Ashkenaz on the high holidays. If you come Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur early enough, you'll see that we actually start with Shir Shel Yom. Okay, so the original plan or original structure was that you recite Shir Shel Yom at the very beginning.
Makes sense.
It makes sense because that was the practice also in the temple. It was recited in conjunction with bringing the Tamid offering, with the daily offering that was brought early in the morning. for practical reasons, for historical reasons, we are doing it throughout the year. We're doing it later, either after Shacharit or after Musaf. Why we do that? In order to accommodate the mourners. Believe it or not, some people are late. Even if they need to say Kaddish to Shul, they are late. And so the rabbis decided to accommodate them. How do we accommodate them? No, we don't stall. We don't want that. We don't want to do that. But we take parts of the service and move them to the end, and the recitation of that particular in that particular case, we're talking about a public recitation of Tehillim. As I mentioned before, public recitation of Tehillim results in a Kaddish. Just like Torah study results in the Rabbi's Kaddish. So public recitation of Tehillim results with a mourner's Kaddish. We have the same thing in Kabbalat Shabbat, right? We have a mourner's Kaddish between Kabbalat Shabbat and the Mariv because we just finished a recitation of a series of Tehillim. Okay, so the same here. They said, okay, let's do it at the end of the service to accommodate those who are going to be late. Yes.
So when David wrote these,
yes,
did he do it for the
Beit HaMikdash? For the Mishkan, yes. Yes. I'm not so sure. So, there's a lot of midrashim and there's a lot of, stuff. I don't know. It's like, if you remember when we discussed Hodu, okay, just like look at page 370. And I said that the first part, which is taken from the book of Chronicles, right? The first part, and then the second part is a collection of verses of Tehillim. And I said that the reason that was incorporated into our daily Pesukei Dezimra is because, according to tradition, whatever I don't remember the source. It's in the Talmud. I don't remember the tractate now. In any event, it says that when David brought the Aron, the Ark, from Givon to Yerushalayim, he composed those verses, and those verses were consequently recited daily, accompanying the daily offering, the Korban Tamid. Okay, and to commemorate that, we recite those psukim in the beginning also. Even though it's not in the book of Samuel, it's in the book of Chronicles. But again, the tradition tells us, the Talmud tells us that King David specifically composed those psukim for that event. In a similar way, I'm not so sure that he composed that as the Mizmor that's going to be recited on Shabbat, but that was the practice in Beit HaMikdash. So I'm not so sure exactly how was the process. We don't have like a lot of evidence and protocols from that time, but we do know the Mishnah talks about that was Psalm 92 was the psalm that was recited in Beit HaMikdash on Shabbat. Yes.
There's some evidence that it might have been, because unlike the other Shirei Shalom, they do not start a Yom whatever.
No. That line. No. Those Mizmorim do not start with Hayom Yom. No, it says Mizmor Shir LeYom HaShabbat. Okay. And after that, we go into basically the Mizmorim that we have every day. So we have Yehi Chvod at the bottom of 388. Yehi Chvod, I'm just going to remind you, is a collection of verses from Tehillim. Okay, it's a collection. It's not a whole psalm, but rather it's a collection of verses. Then we come to the famous Ashrei, which is basically Psalm 145. It has like little additions, yes, I know, from the previous pasuk, the last pasuk from 144, and we have like a little addition in from 115, and we have like a little addition from 84. I know, but technically we call it Ashrei. And what happened? What is going on over there? This is the rabbis decided to add the verse at the end to it from some, I think 115. Yes, am I correct? Yeah, Tilat is from 115. And they decided to do that because they wanted to have the word hallelujah at the end. Because right after that, we're going into the last Psalms of the book of Psalms, right? So it's 146 through 150. That's the end of the book. So since the kind of like the recurring word, that the motif of all those Psalms is the word hallelujah. They end with the word hallelujah. Yeah. So since this is 145, just before that, and the rabbis wanted to make that connection, that thematic connection already to Psalm 146, etc. So they added one verse. So it's also going to end with the word hallelujah. Okay. But we call it Ashrei. The Talmud calls it Tehillah LeDavid, because the psalm itself starts from Tehillah LeDavid, from 145. So what happens before that is the end of the previous psalm. It's 144. It's the end of 144. Okay. Yes.
Page 294, when it says hallelujah, hallelujah, Davening of Shacharit.
Yes.
You don't understand this pasuk. What do you mean that we will?
Not us. Who is in the Shemaim that can praise God? The angels. It's not us. We reciting that because what? And look at the continuation. It says, Hallelujah Shemaim, right? From the heavens, Hallelu b'mromim, in up there, Hallelu hu kol malachav, the malachim. Hallelu kol tzeva'av. It's tzva Shemaim. It's the army of God. It's the angels. It's all those. It's not us. We don't know. No, we call them. We're telling them, or describing, or whatever. Look, this is poetic, right? This is not. These are songs. Okay, so definitely there's poetic license here, but the idea is that this is, when you say God help me, how do you know? You don't know. It's the same idea. Okay.
Well, I actually learned these last group of things, even from Ashrei until the end.
Yeah.
They describe how all the creatures, all the creatures of creation, they're all blessing God. And we go through all the different things. When you look at it, they talk about the birds, they talk about the animals, and each paragraph goes higher, higher, higher. And so the very last one describes the angels blessing God.
I'm thinking about the same thing. How do we know?
We don't know. This is like a poetic license. We just we say that the angels praise God, and as Terry said, it's also the animals, and it's also obviously us. There is definitely a progression here. If you look at 392, you start Hallelujah nafshi et Hashem. This is about me. It's my praising to God. Okay? Then it's what? It's my surrounding. It's what I see around me. It's the building of Yerushalayim. It's Harofeh Lishvorei Lev. I see what's around it. People, right? God is the ultimate healer, the doctor, right? Etc. Okay, the stuff that I can see, nature, I can see all that stuff around me. Then I go one level up, and I talk about, not me, King David talks about the malachim. Okay. And again, he connects it to the second part of the Mizmor. He connects it to earth. It's not only in the skies, but it's also Hallelu Hashem min haaretz, taninim v'chol to'amot, eshu v'at, sheket v'kito, ruach sarasat v'ro. Those elements that we are familiar with. And then heharim, gvaot, aitzpri v'chol arazim, chaya v'chol be'ema. Okay, so he makes that connection between heaven and earth, right? Okay, and then he goes back into the people around us. Bikhal chasidim, yismach Yisrael be'osav, bnei Tzion yagiru b'malkam. Okay, and eventually, it's the stuff that we can't describe. It's what the Greeks had a word for it, and music comes from that. It's the music of, it's let's call it's the language of the world, like, it's the music of nature. And King David, I think, is referring to that in somehow, and he talks about music, right? He talks the instruments and because at some point words get you only to a certain place. What happens beyond that place? Okay, and many believe that music is not only that. Music is what's beyond the words. Okay, in Hasidic, for example, in Hasidic thought, this is like the importance of the nigun. Right, this is such a big deal in Hasidut, because it's okay. So I praise God, I ask, I do whatever I can, I use my words, but there's something beyond that. The nigun comes from the heart, the nigun comes from whatever that is, but that's the next level. Okay? So, in any event, we have those psalms. We're familiar with them because we recite them every day. Now, just to put things in perspective, we need to understand that the original form of that unit of Pesukei Dezimra, it seems, again, it's a matter of debate between the scholars, but it seems that it started, no, actually, on that, everybody agree, that those chapters of the what we call the Hallelujahs, right, that unit, that collection of Psalms, this is the original, this is the most, that's the first part of and the most original one of Pesukei Dezimra, and the other material was added later with time, whether it's the Hodu, whether it's we're going to come to Vavarech David, whether we're going to, Shirat Hayam, all that kind of stuff that we're going to see. Okay, but that was kind of like the original material. Now, ask me, who cares? What's the difference? It's here in the Siddur. I need to read the whole thing. Like, what? The practical aspect, the answer for that is what happens when you have circumstances, when you need to skip because you're late. No, because there's no time, or because you're late, or because whatever. So if you understand the historic background of that, and you understand that the Hallelujahs are, then there's sort of a system. So you stay with the Hallelujahs, and perhaps you cut, okay? Or you, next level, for example, you stay with the most concise version of the Pesukei Dezimra, which is what we find in the weekdays. And you perhaps take out the additional psalms that we have on Shabbat and holidays. So these are the parameters by which you make your decisions. If you look in the Mishnah Berurah, whatever, there's like a whole list of what you skip first, and you need to really time your by the time you make that calculation, it's over. It's no longer relevant. But there is hierarchy of things here, and what do you do when there's not enough time? Yes, Terry.
Actually, my daughter had about mitzvah gets called Pesukei Lev, and it lists the order. I think it's specifically for women.
And there's a difference between men and women here. Don't ask me why, but some. I know what I'm saying. So the Mishnah Berurah, when you look at the Mishnah Berurah, you'll get something slightly different. I'm sorry? The women are women, for those who are in a hurry, they're exempt from the tefillah altogether. Okay. What's interesting is like this is actually an interesting point that is starting to surface more and more lately. We know that women are exempt from mitzvot shazman raman, from town-bound mitzvot. Within that mitzvah is tefillah, because the assumption is they don't have time. They're taking care of the kids, whatever, all that kind of stuff, and it's understandable. Fine. But what happens in today's reality when the kids are out of the house, for example, or if the woman is the one that goes to work and the husband is the one that stays at home? Are these halachic parameters still relevant? Is a woman exempt from tefillah if the whole assumption is because she's home and she's taking care of the kids? What if she's not taking care of the kids?
Is that tefillah something that it's individually? It says to do just.
Okay, so what? And so what? But still, there's an obligation, right?
But it's an obligation out of love, out of consideration of what we have, or what God gave us.
No. The poskim said that there's an obligation to daven every day.
What that is.
Progress.
Actually, it is. I mean, you can debate, but like, everybody agree on the Amidah, everybody agree on certain elements. But let's leave it as a theoretical for a second. And that's the question that is now surfacing. We understand that exemption. Trust me, after when my wife was away for a couple of days, I said, we understand why, oh my God. Fine. But what if, in today's, reality is different. It's not what it used to be 500 years ago. What happens when the kids are out of the house? Some poskim, what? Doesn't matter. Who cares? No. Forget about the minyan. It's okay, so you don't say Kaddish. Fine. But there's still an obligation. Look, if I'm okay, let's assume I'm traveling on vacation, whatever. I'm going somewhere and there's no minyan. Am I exempt from tefillah? Okay, so what? But I'm still not exempt from tefillah. I'm exempt from certain things I cannot recite because I don't know a minyan. I get it. But I'm not exempt from tefillah. Right? Same goes here. Yes.
Well, I think it's critical now more than ever that Judaism remain in the male-female paradigm that God created mankind. Male and
Okay.
female.
Okay.
I mean, the difference in the Torah for the sins that women did, both individually and as a group of women, different many times and separate from what the sins of the men did, like the
Okay.
spouse.
Fine.
And so that would have an impact on things, I would think, and also that the righteous things that the women did were very important.
Yes, but
And
we don't judge men. We say, look, this is more poetic things, it's the real thing is very simple. We have an obligation to daven. We have an obligation for tefillah. The rabbi said, okay, things like tefillah, women are exempt. Why? Because they're busy. They're too busy. And it's more important to raise a family, it's more important to take care of the kids than to daven. Very simple. I say now, okay, what if that reasoning is no longer there? So a lot of the rabbis, a lot of the poskim say absolutely yes. And for some reason, it's not something that we see But I think that it's something that we're going to start seeing, hopefully, that women daven on a daily basis, especially when they're not taking care of the kids.
At home.
At home. Why not?
But are they obligated to? Because
So that's exactly my point. I think that once the obstacle, the issue of taking care of the kids or all that kind of stuff is no longer there. Yes, they have the same obligations as the men.
I'd like to add that we have this answer is by the modernity. When we say modernity, we already giving thanks.
But that's not tefillah. That's not tefillah. That's say thank you. That's not tefillah. Yes and no. Thematically, yes, but halachically, tefillah is defined as specific things, like the Amidah.
then if women are obligated.
Yeah.
Men should not be obligated when they are taking care.
Absolutely.
But let's go that way.
Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. Somebody, by the way, called me a couple of months ago and he said, look, my wife is away, whatever, that kind of stuff. Like, who's gonna light candles for Shabbat? And I said, you. And he was like shocked. I said, you're home, you're with the kids, you light candles. But it's for the women. I said, and it still have to happen. Somebody needs to light candle in your house before Shabbat. If your wife is not there, you're gonna do it. So exactly. You need to think about, there's like, we share the responsibility, we share the, all that kind of stuff. We have to start thinking more. There is no obligation to make halot. It's a nice thing to do, but you can go and buy them. You don't, there's no obligation of making that. Well, and that's nothing to do with women, by the way. Whoever bakes has to do a Haftashat Challah if it's like whatever, meet the criteria. Same for Kiddush, of course. And Havdalah.
Okay, well, it just bothers me because considering where secular society is going with all this
Yes.
stuff with the sexes, I think we have to look and say, well, ahead. Because frankly, all the changes that have happened in society since I was young, which have changed the relationship between men and women, has not necessarily.
I'm not talking about like that stuff. I'm talking about it's let's call it relationship with God. And we're all equal. Men, women, we're all equal with our relationship with God.
Same.
Equal is not the same. Never. Correct. But if something needs to be done, and even if it's traditionally the man's job, under different circumstances, should be the woman's job, or vice versa. It still needs to be done. Right? Look, if I'm not around and like, something needs to be fixed, my wife can, find her way with tools as well. Right? So it still needs to be done.
So is the handyman.
Okay, let's assume it's the middle of the night and you're not going to call a handyman or whatever. Okay, let's move. Okay, we are on page 396. We're in the middle of 396. So I want to finish at least that unit. Okay, so 396. Again, we recite that every day. Interesting. We have this passage that well, a couple of messages. Second paragraph is a collection of 3 psukim, again from Tehillim. Why do we have them? Because that's the custom, is to recite them when you finish the recitation of the book of Tehillim. And since the recitation of the last couple of Psalms of Tehillim is considered as if you recited a whole book, this is why we recite those psukim. Okay, so it's 3 verses. If you look at Sifrei Tehillim, you'll see at the end, after the Kol Shemata Hallelujah, Hallelujah, after 150, you will see those, not always, whatever, it's tradition. You'll see those 3 verses. It's kind of became the tradition to recite those 3 verses after the recitation of the book of Tehillim. Fine. Then we have 2 paragraphs. One is taken from the book of Chronicles, and the other is taken from the book of Nehemiah. Now, what are we doing with that? Reminding you, when we said, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, when we started discussing Pesukei Dezimra, we said that there's a very crucial line in the bracha, in the beginning, in the opening bracha of Pesukei Dezimra, that defines, it kind of limits the material that we can recite in this unit. We said, you can take a look again in Baruch Shamar on page 370, you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th line of the bracha in the middle. We said, "Ubshirei David avdecha, na'alelcha Hashem Elokeinu b'shmachot v'zmirot." How are we going to praise you, God? Through the songs of King David. So that means whatever is not the songs of King David is going to be kind of like a problem, right? How do we include it if we made a declaration in the beginning that we're going to use the songs of David? Okay, have that in mind. We're going to discuss that in hopefully in 5 minutes when we discuss Shirat Hayam. But here, this was already kind of like also, okay, what do we do with that? So the beginning, the book of Chronicles, okay, it's Vavar David et Hashem le'nei kol ha'kahal. We use obviously the words of King David here. It's not the songs of King David. It's not Tehillim, but still the words of King David as appears in the book of Chronicles. Now, why this is important? Because this is the link to the next one. The next one, 1, 2, 3, like 4th paragraph on 396 is from the book of Nehemiah. Now, the book of Nehemiah is definitely not the words of King David, right? Just to put things in historic perspective, after the destruction of the first temple, the Jewish people, they go into exile in Bavel, in Babylonia, right? And they stay there. There's an exile for 70 years. And after that, it's debatable. What's the percentage? Whatever, it doesn't matter. But a significant chunk of the Jewish community goes back to Israel, whatever that is. People debate 10%, 50%. I don't care. But under the leadership of Nehemiah and Ezra, a group go back to Israel, eventually later on build the second temple and reestablish Jewish life in the land of Israel. Fine. That is actually a debate. There's a debate whether it was Moshe, Yoshua, or Ezra. But it's either way, it's very ancient takana. Either way, let's go back to so what is happening there? This is Nehemiah at that point. They're about to start the building of the second temple. Okay? Yes, they're going to start, then they're going to have issues. So there's going to be right. Well, they're going to have a stop, which is debatable. Like scholars debate how long was that stop. Some say 18, some say 100, some say like it's anything in between. Whatever. They had political issues, whatever. And then eventually, under Koresh, they built Beit HaMikdash, the second temple. Okay, but Nehemiah starts. He starts, whatever that means. I don't know what exactly they were able to accomplish, but even if it's like putting one stone, I don't care. They start the process. And what he does, we don't have a quote of that, but he says, I'm going to tell you what King David said when he started the process of building the first temple. So what do you think we have here? The previous paragraph is, this is happening when David, well, at least at that time, that's what he thought, finished the fundraising for building Beit HaMikdash. Later on, we're going to discover that that was not enough money. And King and his son, Shlomo, adds a lot of taxes, which consequently becomes a huge problem, and the split of the kingdom to Israel and Yehuda, that because of the taxes, but that's a different story. But King David acquired Har Moriah, the Temple Mount, right, from Aravna Yevusi. He has the initial, at least initial plans for Beit HaMikdash, architect, and he collects the money. And at that point, he gives that speech. So Nehemiah, what he's trying to do is now to make a connection, Jewish continuity. That's what King David said. I'm telling. So it's whether it's the exact words of King David or not, we don't really know, but this is a paraphrasing on what King David said at that time, as expressed by Nehemiah. So we have this continuity, we see the movement, and we understand why in Knesset HaGedolah that come later on at the end of the Second Temple period, why they saw that as an important link. First Temple into Second Temple, into what's going to happen now when we go into exile again after destruction of the Second Temple. Yes? Okay. Now, one of the customs, not on Shabbat, but during the week, is to give to tzedakah, to give charity at that point of the service. Why? It's very simple. Look, and this is like a more of a theological reason. Look at 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth line. David says to them, "V'ha'osher v'ha'kavod milfanecha," meaning God, v'ata moshel bakol. King David reminds the people what actually Moshe is reminding us during those parshiot now that we read in Sefer Devarim. It's the same message. It all comes from God. So King David just collected the money and he said, it's not because of me. It's not because of us. It's because of you. You decided to give us that money. The fact that we have whatever we have is because of you, God. That's the message that he wants. That's what, by the way, Moshe is highlighting throughout Sefer Devarim. Moshe is not concerned about when things are bad. When things are bad, we know exactly, we're good. The problem is when things are good. There's a lot of references, right? What's going to happen? How are you going to stay focused on God, on whatever, on what's really important in life, and you're not going to start thinking, oh, I'm a successful businessman. I'm smart. This is why I'm successful. No. It's not you. Everything is from God, right? So by saying that at that point, we remind ourselves, if we have, it means that God gave it to us. And if God gave it to us, he gave it to us for a reason. And what is that reason? So we can share it with others. And this is the custom has developed to give tzedakah at that particular point of the service. Okay? So obviously not on Shabbat. Okay. So after that paragraph of Nehemiah, we go into next page, 398, Shirat Hayam. With the introduction. Right? So Shirat Hayam is chapter 15 in Sefer Shmot. This is the end of Vayosha, is the end of chapter 14. It's the intro to Shirat Hayam. Huge debate. The Rambam writes about Shirat Hayam, and he says, I heard there's a custom that some people recite it every day, but that's not required. That's not part of the tefillah. Make a long story short, in Italy, around like the 1700s or so, we start to see that it becomes, from Italy, whatever, it becomes like an accepted minhag among pretty much vast majority of all communities. And they were like debating from the time of the Rambam all the way here, whether to use it, to do it or not. Okay. So the question is, why not? Or why yes? What do you want to start with? With a why yes or why not? Why add another thing? So the thought was, we have a whole unit of tefillah dedicated to praising God through songs. How can you not include the greatest song in the Bible? Yes, it's not the words of King David, but it's the words of Moshe Rabbeinu. I mean, like, right?
The Torah itself is, the Torah itself is.
Okay, but now we're making editorial choices, right? Yes, but we're going to take care of that in the Shema. So that is why the yes, and the why no, because the unit is defined. Anyway, you can see since it became the prevailing custom, so you understand who won that debate. Okay, so this is Shirat Hayam, the great song that Moshe and Bnei Israel sang as after crossing the Yam Suf.
The winners prevail.
The fact that it made it into the Siddur. What do you mean, do we know?
Okay.
More and more people started including that. More and more communities adopted it. More and more rabbis said, we're going to do it. This is how you win. That's all we need to know. That the fact that something was accepted, that's the win. There is no much of a story. There was a debate whether to include it or not. The fact that everybody, at the end of the day, everybody took some time, but everybody accepted it, that means that they won.
I think that it also the also with the end of the Torah of the Shir, it says Chazak, Chazak. Does this mean is this connected to this?
No.
Yeah, it says Chazak, Chazak, and Chazak. So
That's a custom to recite it when we end a book in public. There's nothing to do with that. Yeah. Okay. Then what happens is, on Shabbat and holidays, we add the section that is in the middle of page 400 called Nishmat, or in its correct name is Birkat Hashir. Okay, the blessing of the song.
but maybe it's so comes to the heart from the Neshama.
And so,
This is what it is. Shmat Kol Chag.
okay. So this bracha appears already in the Talmud. And when do we also recite it? Pesach in the Haggadah. Good, very good. And it has references to a lot of the material from Tehillim that we just read, and it also somehow connects to the bracha of Yishtabach, right? So on Shabbat and holidays, you see the bracha of Yishtabach, 404 is connected to Nishmat. All that stuff is still Nishmat. And historically, this bracha was recited at the end of recitation of Tehillim. At least one of the theories. What do you mean, how often? We say it every Shabbat.
Then when they used to
People, everybody had, no. When you finish the whole book of Tehillim, some people recite Tehillim every day. Some people have like, they say the Tehillim of the day. Some people they do like a whole book of Tehillim. There's like different practices. A lot of people spend their entire day reciting Tehillim. Let's, in any event, so this is the bracha that kind of ends that section. What happens is, if you look to in the bottom of page 402, you'll see that we have a difference between the Chagim, the Regalim, and Shabbat. So on Shabbat, the Chazan starts on 404 on the top, Shochen ad marom v'kadosh shemo. Okay? Again, it's still part of Birkat Hashir, it's still part of Nishmat. It's not like a thing by itself. On the Regalim, the Chazan starts one verse before, i.e., Ha'el beta'atzumot uzecha, that's the bottom of page 402. And by the way, where does the Chazan start on Yamim Noraim? The end of that line, the very end of 402. Hamelech. Okay? What's the difference? The Abu Draham explains in the early 1400s. He says that each one of those is expressions that is reflected. We give it an expression in our tefillot to the nature of the day. Shochen Ad talks about God's, if you can say it, character as Adon Olam, right? That God has been there forever, and Shochen Ad, always, right? Story of creation, which is the story of creation, obviously reverberates automatically with Shabbat for us, right? Ha'el beta'atzumot uzecha talks about God's might, because the Regalim represents God's might and, right? Pesach, Yetziat Mitzrayim, Shavuot is Matan Torah, and Sukkot obviously is our protection in the desert. Different aspects of God's might, and therefore we highlight that. So this is what kind of like the theme of the Regalim. And of course, on the high holidays, Hamelech, right? Malchuyot is the theme. God as the king. That's the theme of Rosh Hashanah, and therefore we start from there. So it's kind of a little anecdote. It's like a little thing where the Chazan starts. Technically, why the Chazan starts here and not later on is because we do not want to create hefsek. In other words, in a similar way, okay, let me go one step back. Pesukei Dezimra is still one of those units that I don't require a minyan for. Therefore, just like Kabbalat Shabbat, Pesukei Dezimra is, yes, I know that we have Kaddish, but that's for historical reasons and to accommodate people who are late or okay. Technically, you don't need somebody who is even bar mitzvah age to lead that. Technically, you don't need anyone to lead that. Indeed, the practice in a lot of the yeshivot is that everybody reads to themselves, both Kabbalat Shabbat and Pesukei Dezimra. When does it like, okay, we're starting davening together? It's the barchu. Right? The barchu is the call to action. It's like, you have a party, everybody's doing like whatever, and at some point somebody dang, 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 dang on the glass. Attention. This is the barchu, basically. May I have your attention, please? Because being 10 people in the room and having a minute is not enough. It's funny. The halachic responsa has tons of references. What happens if somebody is in the room but he's asleep? I would say into our days, what if somebody's in the room and they're all busy on their phone? So from halachic perspective, you got to be present, not only physically, also mentally, in order to be considered part of the minyan. But that's a whole different story. Okay, so but up until that point of the Baruch, we don't really need a minyan. By the way, the Sephardic tradition is that the whole tzibur, everybody together, recite Pesukei Dezimra and Kabbalat Shabbat together. There's no chazan leading there. Like everybody's sitting in their seats and everybody sing together. Okay? By the Ashkenazim, it's like much more formal, but so you don't really need the minyan up until the Baruch. And again, why is the Baruch requires a minyan? Because we're going to go into the Shema. And the Shema is considered to be what we call davar shebiktusha. We summon or whatever, the Shekhinah or whatever, we as a community, once we come together, we daven together as a community, we change our status from individuals to community. That's the minyan. So the minyan kicks in the Baruch. Okay? Even if I have 100 people, it really doesn't matter. I can still take a 9-year-old kid to lead Pesukei Dezimra because it doesn't have the same status. Everybody's with me? Understand what I'm saying? Okay. So in order that was a very elaborated intro to explain why the Chazan start not with the Baruch, because we don't want to have an interruption. We don't want to have an interruption because you say, "Oh, you go, no, you go, no, you lead, no. Where's the Chazan? Like, he's in the bathroom. No. We don't want to have all that. We want to have a flow of things. And therefore the Chazan starts earlier when it's not really obligatory to have the minyan yet. We're not in the minyan. It's just like somebody is leading that. He's already there. He is ready. By the way, every day, right, during the week, when we don't have nishmat, and we have several people that divide the tefillah, for example, right? Let's assume that we have a couple of people that were leading the tefillah on that day. Like, 2 people have your title, 2 people saying Kaddish, whatever that is. So they switch in Yishtabach. Because whoever is going to be there for the Baruch is there already for Yishtabach. Because we don't want to break the flow. Same goes here. So already in Nishmat, the Chazan starts. There was a very famous Chazan who passed away about a year ago. Moshe Stern was one of the greatest Chazanim of the 20th century. Both here in America. I was in Borough Park in Bethel and later on in Israel. And I remember as a little kid, I used to go and listening to him in Tel Aviv and Holon, whatever. My dad used to schlep me. We used to walk 3-4 hours to listen to him sometimes when he came. And there's a famous cantorial piece that takes forever. This starts like starts here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 7th line and 402, like way before the Chazan start Shacharit. Start from Adhena Azarunu Rachamecha. It's a concert piece that Yosele Rosenblatt, whoever is familiar with the name, composed, and that was his opening act. It's like 15 minutes of one heavy, beautiful cantorial piece. That was his intro. He started from there even before hitting the Shochenad. People used to have a lot of patience back then. Not today. Nobody has patience for that. But so what I'm trying to say here is like all this idea where the Chazan actually starts is kind of like flexible. So on Shabbat we start Shochenad, and the Regalim we start Hail B'Tatzumot Uzecha. On Yomim Noraim we start Hamelech. Some Chazanim used to start Adhena Azarunu Rachamecha. Whatever that is, but the point is like way before we switch gears in order to make sure that we don't break the flow of the tefillah. So this is kind of the end of Pesukei Dezimra. Next time, we're going to continue with the Shacharit for Shabbat.
Wonderful. Thank you.